Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. I wanted to make a video reacting to some news, but first off, I think there is a chance we get an unranked bantamweight fighting for the bantamweight title at UFC 267. So let's talk about it a little bit. UFC 267 happens at the end of October in Abu Dhabi, and the main event is Jan Blachowicz versus Glover Teixeira for the light heavyweight title. In the co-main event, you have Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling 2 for the bantamweight title. So Aljamain Sterling pulled out of this fight. Apparently, it's lingering neck injury, and now it's kind of up in the air what's happening with Petr Yan. But their first fight in March of this year, we all know what happened in that fight. It was super competitive in the first round, round and a half, and then Yan really started to take over the fight and dominate Aljamain Sterling. And it looked like Petr Yan was working his way to a finish, and he illegally knees Aljamain Sterling for whatever reason. Aljamain Sterling puts on the performance of a lifetime. Some people say he deserves an Oscar for it. I think it was the referee's fault because he said to the doctor, which why does the doctor even need to know this information? He said to him, I told him to watch the knees, so if he can't continue, it's a disqualification. Says it right in front of Aljamain Sterling. All of a sudden, Aljamain Sterling flops back. But I was actually a defender of Aljamain Sterling in this case because even though I don't think it's a good look to be flopping around and faking, Jan should not have thrown the knee. You have to know the rules of the sport. You're throwing illegal knees, illegal techniques. It shouldn't be happening. You should know the rules. So now they rescheduled the fight and they were going to have a rematch to see, okay, can Aljamain Sterling beat him? And it already got pushed back because Aljamain Sterling had surgery on his neck. So they fought in March. Now it was going to be all the way in the end of October, almost November by the time they fought. So it's already a long, extended period of time before we get the rematch. And now Sterling pulls out again. And I believe they're going to make an interim title at UFC 267. They're going to find an opponent for Petr Yan. But I think there's a chance. And I don't think it would be right at this point in time. I think there's a chance the UFC strips Aljamain Sterling. If you followed my channel, I've talked about this before in some of the live chats and stuff like that. The UFC, no matter what, Aljamain Sterling deserves it or doesn't deserve it. I don't think they like that he's the champion. I don't think that what he did at UFC, I think it was 259. And, I think they would strip him just so they could have some, to have the division kind of back in order. You kind of have a champion who really doesn't necessarily deserve to be champion. He's definitely not the best in the world. He was getting outclassed by Petr Yan before the illegal knee. So it's kind of a weird scenario. So depending on how long he's out, there's a chance they just outright strip Sterling and make Petr Yan versus another opponent for the bantamweight title. But I think it's most likely they're going to say, okay, we'll give Aljamain Sterling a little bit more time, and we'll make this for an interim title fight. So who can Petr Yan fight at UFC 267? Well, apparently it's being reported the UFC is looking into booking Petr Yan versus Cory Sandhagen, which I love that fight. That's a super fun fight. And what would be so interesting about this fight, other than, obviously the stylistic matchup would be incredible. I favor Yan in that fight, by the way, in case you're wondering. But you would have two guys fighting for a title who are both coming off losses. I know Yan would be a DQ loss. Sandhagen just lost by decision to TJ Dillashaw. And I know some people are saying, well, why is Sandhagen getting it? He just lost to TJ Dillashaw. First off, that was a razor-close fight. A lot of people gave that fight to Cory Sandhagen. And I don't really believe that loss did anything to Sandhagen as far as, where he's at. I think he's one impressive win away from a title shot anyway. Still, even after that loss to TJ Dillashaw. TJ Dillashaw supposedly injured, going to be out till early 2022, so he can't step in. So really, what are your options right now? You could have a Rob Font potential option, maybe a Jose Aldo option. But other than that, there's really not very many options other than this unranked guy that I'm going to get to in a second, whether or not I think that might happen. It looks like the UFC is going to try to book that Petr Yan versus Cory Sandhagen for the interim bantamweight title. And the winner of that fight at UFC 267 will then be rescheduled to fight Aljamain Sterling, which will be a rematch for either guy. Cory Sandhagen lost to Aljamain Sterling in 2020. Petr Yan obviously lost to Aljamain Sterling earlier this year by DQ. So this is where my theory gets a little bit interesting. And I say, there's a chance we get an unranked bantamweight fighting for the UFC title. So on Twitter, Sean O'Malley is campaigning, and I don't know whether this is real or not. He means this or not. He is campaigning to fight Petr Yan at UFC 267. He's saying, give me the fight. He's tweeted out multiple things that he wants to fight him. And the reason I think there's a shot at this, and I know it sounds crazy, he's not even in the top 15. Sean O'Malley is a massive name. Sean O'Malley is an up-and-coming talent. A lot of people are high on Sean O'Malley. I know Marlon Vera has the win over him, but if Sean O'Malley was willing to step in on short notice, the UFC would get a pass by everyone. They would get a pass by everyone. Well, it's on short notice. They wanted to find an opponent. They wanted to still keep it a title fight. And then on top of that, if Sean O'Malley somehow wins, he will become a massive superstar and be selling pay-per-views for the UFC like crazy. If he loses, well, he stepped in short notice to fight Petr Yan. So he really doesn't lose anything. And then on top of that, Sean O'Malley has had negotiating issues. And we know the UFC really likes to resolve these negotiating issues when they need a short notice replacement. If you remember, Kamaru Usman was supposed to fight Jorge Masvidal last summer, summer of 2020. Instead, because of negotiating issues, they booked Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns pulled out, and then they said, okay, Jorge Masvidal, we'll give you whatever you want if you step in on short notice. So I think there's a chance Sean O'Malley gets what he wants in his contract. UFC gets a massive fight for UFC 267. If Sean O'Malley, one of their hottest prospects and potential biggest up-and-coming stars, wins, that would be incredible. And then on top of that, if he loses, there's really no loss. He stepped in on short notice to fight one of the greatest bantamweights in the UFC. So I really think if O'Malley campaigns for it hard enough, there's a chance that we could get Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley for the bantamweight title. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Am I absolutely insane? But I really think it's possible, especially when you look at the layout of the division right now. There's not a lot of other options. You could give it to the Sandhagen, who's coming off a loss, and I think that's probably the most likely scenario. But I think there's a chance that Sean O'Malley gets a bantamweight title shot in 2021. Who would have thought you heard those words coming from my mouth? Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. I will be going live tonight immediately following UFC 266 to do a post-fight. So join me then. I'll talk to you guys later. Enjoy the rest of your night, and thank you so much for watching.